Welcome to The Know, I'm Turney.
I'm Jenkins.
Kids say just the darndest things, don't they? And now they want to sue the federal government and President Obama over climate change.
Better hurry. He's not president that much longer.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, things have gotten pretty bad when kids are looking at the planet and they're like, what the hell, guys? Look at this mess you've made.
It's true. Someone should probably tell these youths to put down the legal pads and go play outside, where the air's disgusting. You know what? Maybe they do have a point here.
Although, aren't we supposed to be telling them to clean their rooms or something like that? I mean, you don't tell us to clean up, we tell you to clean up.
That's true.
Kids. The complaint filed by nonprofit agency Our Children's Trust alleges that Obama and a number of other federal agencies have ignored climate change, favoring the current generation over future generations. They also claim that they're being denied basic rights because of the crappy state of our planet.
This complaint was first filed back in November and got enough attention that heavy hitters from the oil and gas lobby jumped in as co-defendants with the government.
Well, that's gonna make them look better, isn't it?
Yeah, these trade groups include the American Petroleum Institute, the American Fuel and Petrochemical Manufacturers, the National Association of Manufacturers, and Captain Planet's nemesis, Captain Pollution.
On Wednesday, attorneys representing Big Fossil Fuel and Uncle Sam argued that the complaint should be dismissed. Now, a federal judge is going to decide whether or not the case can proceed all the way to trial.
The plaintiffs, ranging from ages 8 to 19, appeared at a press conference after this week's hearing. One of them is a 15-year-old activist. I'm going to slaughter your name. I heard you say it about 10 times.
We're really sorry about this.
It's really hard. Ashley, you're better at it than me.
I think it's Teskatil. Something like that.
Teskatil Martinez, we tried. We're really sorry. He said, we are valuing our futures over profits. We are valuing this planet over corporate greed.
Half those kids aren't even old enough to create a Nintendo account, by the way. Martinez went on to say, my generation is going to be inheriting the crisis we see all around us today. We're standing up not only for the environment and the earth and the atmosphere, but for the rights we have to live in a healthy, just, and sustainable world.
If you think this case sounds like it has a snowball's chance on Earth of succeeding, yeah, that's a good one, you might have a point. A similar case brought by Our Children's Trust was thrown out back in 2011.
It's sort of hard to prove to the government that the government is liable for screwing over an entire generation, imagine that. But they've also filed complaints like this in all 50 states, with a number of the cases still pending.
In November of last year, they got a pretty big win in Washington when a judge agreed with them that the state's duty is to protect its natural resources for the common benefit of the people of the state. So these kinds of cases are certainly getting some traction, as well as setting some legal precedent.
Currently, the crux of the argument is that the atmosphere is a resource entrusted to the government and they're failing to uphold it, which interferes with the next generation's fundamental rights to life, liberty, and property.
This is part of the public trust doctrine from common English law, which states that the government must protect resources for future generations. Part of the issue at hand is whether or not the public trust doctrine can be applied to the federal government. So far, its only legal precedent has been used for state issues, not federal.
The kids also argue that though the government is taking small incremental steps to help with climate change, they're not doing enough to keep up with the science, which states that just a 2-degree shift in Celsius could be enough for a global catastrophe, and if anything, that they're contributing to the problem.
As for the defendant's position, well, that'd be the government and fossil fuel groups, remember. You don't ever want fossil fuel on your side, but okay. Their main argument basically makes them seem like the villains in every Kids Overcome the Odds movie ever.
Right. According to a U.S. Department of Justice attorney, quote, there simply is no constitutional right to a pollution-free environment. Actual words said to kids by the government, guys. Maybe they do belong with fossil fuel.
Yeah, you breathe the crappy air I tell you to breathe. Another part of the government's position is that the plaintiffs, again, children, have failed to establish that the government has actively infringed on their rights. Failing to act isn't good enough for a legal battle.
Which is basically saying, okay, yeah, maybe we've done a shitty job, but we haven't directly hurt you. We're legally in the clear.
Yeah, fortunately for the plaintiffs and maybe everyone, there actually is legal precedent that shows the government should be taking reasonable action to protect its citizens, even without defined standards. The case in question is Brown versus Plata, where the Supreme Court set a mandatory limit on prison population using expert opinion rather than leaving it up to the government to determine.
That's important because it means that the courts could help decide the standards for climate protection, since the government has failed to establish meaningful benchmarks on its own. The defense, meanwhile, is saying that this is an overreach of the judicial system.
Climate change has been an increasingly hot topic, warm topic.
Oh, I see what you did.
With the world lately, though it has its detractors. It's largely been settled in the scientific community for some time now, so we won't go into it much here.
According to NASA, there are 18 different scientific associations that largely agree that global warming is happening and is human-induced. As for the detractors, their arguments have also been mostly debunked by the scientific community as well.
The effects of global warming are both alarming and well known. Even if we slow down the current rise in temperatures, we may be looking at sea levels rising by 20 feet by the year 2200.
I could use some beachfront property. Outside of the science community, the issue of global warming has also been getting traction in the public sphere as well. After his meme-busting Oscar win, Leonardo DiCaprio himself called out climate change as causing a huge amount of difficulty for filming The Revenant and demanded real action.
Regardless of the outcome of this particular hearing, our Children's Trust will still have other irons in the judicial fire here at home and even around the world.
It's kind of nice to see kids who are not normally thought of as powerful doing something on such a big stage to make a difference for the future.
Yes, we've seen all kinds of cases, some way too recent, like Flint and a bunch of other places in the US where entire healths of communities are criminally ignored by government officials. Elevated levels of lead in the city's drinking water have led to affected school systems where public officials are urging schools to shut off their water.
Wow, you reach rock bottom when you're saying shut off the water.
Just
the
shut it
water
off.
itself is dangerous.
Yes.
It's going to poison you. So, despite what people say about those darn legal whippersnappers suing the government, you've got to give the next generation a little bit of props for not putting up with what the rest of us have already deemed as a part of life. We're used to being poisoned.
Yeah, sorry, that's just how it is. Well, until they start suing us for putting their pictures on Facebook, which apparently is now a thing in France.
Seriously, parents can get fined up to £35,000 and spend up to a year in prison if their kids decide later in life that they violated their privacy by posting Facebook pictures.
What the hell?
That's the thing. That is actually where we live now.
I
This
will
is the
post
world.
a photo of you in the bathtub and you will like it. By the way, the moral of the story is don't pollute the planet anymore, and please don't embarrass your kids on Facebook because you can't afford it.
What do you guys think of the case of these kids suing the U.S. government? Could this be the greatest David versus Goliath story of all time? Let us know in the comments.
For more climate change news and what exactly those wacky kids will think of next, like this video and subscribe to the channel. Rolly McRollerson.
What do they specialize in?
He has girls roll over his dick.
He takes his belly and
Yeah.
just rolls it up.
Oh, he's fat. I didn't even think of rolls in that context. I thought of like a crocodile that does like a death roll. Alrighty.
They're both horrific.